All right, welcome to Quixotic Heights, where we dive into the stories that shape who we are and the voices pushing culture forward. Today, I'm joined by Randy Kim, a Khmer-Vietnamese American writer, content creator, and the host of Banh Mi Chronicles. He's also the mind behind the Substack newsletter Banh Mi Bites. Randy's work amplifies BIPOC voices, exploring identity, memory, and healing. As a queer child of refugees, Randy has wrestled with questions of belonging, survival, and resilience, often through deeply personal reflections on trauma and mental health. In our conversation today, we'll talk about his journey, the power of storytelling, and how vulnerability can become a bridge to community and self-love. So please know that this episode may be triggering for some listeners as we discuss trauma, identity, politics, and mental health. Randy, welcome to Quixotic Heights, my friend. How are
Yes,
you today?
thank you so much for bringing me on. It's an honor to be on your show, and I know you've been a guest on my show a few times, back in the day, and I'm glad to, finally be on your platform. And yeah, how am I doing? You know, it's a weird question right now because there's a lot of chaos as we speak in October with ice raids going on in Chicago, and I'm worried about a lot of my friends and family and everything that's associated to the city that I'm very deeply tied to. Um, and at the same time, it's keeping me very busy, just working on my podcast, sharing information and stories of what's happening. I think that's very important to like really bring that to the forefront. So I feel energized. I feel like I'm in this weirdly good place despite whatever chaos is going on right now. I feel like, yeah, I'm energized to finally feel like I am at least contributing my little part to support my community. So I think that's where I'm at right now. But yeah.
Yeah, you sound pretty fired up from the Randy that I know. And I know there's a lot going in Chicago, and we can certainly talk about that if you want to approach that topic and get some things off your chest as well, because there's a lot going on with ICE and things like that. But I love to kick my podcast off with asking my guests what their Quixotic Heights dream is. Would you like to share what yours is, Randy?
Yeah, I actually had to think about this for a long minute. Um, for a while, I had always thought my biggest dream would be to have a podcast or to have a platform that would reach a very large audience and be invited to like talk shows and all that fun stuff. That was always something that I dream of. Not to say that I don't desire those things at all. I think I think the best way of putting it is the past year when I've had to go through so much peaks and valleys of turbulences and joy, I feel like my dream would be to just enjoy the present and think of the future as opportunities and embracing certain unknowns that could actually be very opportunistic, that could be very connecting. So I think right now my dream would be to really be deeply connected with folks that I'm on the journey with, or or folks that I have not met yet that could end up being on my journey. So I think that I think there's more power, and I think there's a lot um, that um, I feel very connected to. It's with people that continue to inspire and challenge me and find other ways to better myself. And I think that is for me has always been I feel like that's been the ultimate dream, just to be better at what I'm doing and to keep discovering. And I feel like things do change all the time, and I want to continue to evolve with that.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful dream because I think sometimes, we're up in the clouds, we're thinking about the what ifs in the future when there's so much happening now, and it's so important sometimes to just stay grounded and live in the moment and truly appreciate and feel blessed for, what's in the here and now, right? And
Mhm.
you've gone through so much, well, we've known each other, I think 5 years now, but in the past couple of years or so, you've gone through a lot. Would you like to share any of your journey to today?
Yeah, what I could share with you, maybe like in summation, when I was ready to end the Banh Mi Chronicles podcast in 2023, I was starting to feel very burned out. I was starting to feel like the podcasting landscape had changed. I felt that a lot of my colleagues who entered into the podcast sphere were already exiting. And I also felt that people were starting to change their listening habits. Remote work was starting to become a thing of the past in some ways. And I felt that even though I was putting on really good work, I noticed that people were not tuning in as much. Um, that wasn't necessarily the factor, but I also noticed that it was changing. I felt like maybe I need to start pivoting. What is it that's going to continue to motivate me? And yeah, I felt like I've been doing it for 4 years, and most of it was really during the pandemic. I started my podcast like a few months before the pandemic started, and little did I realize that that was going to take me on this wild adventure, which most of it was really positive and things that I never expected. When I ended the podcast, I decided to open up a Substack, and I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to focus more on the writing aspect of it. There's still an interview component of it. I was still trying to get used to that format, and it wasn't the same, I think. I was hitting the ground running, but it just didn't capture the kind of curiosity, the excitement that I had when I first started my podcast. And and I think that was and I don't know how to describe that. I think it wasn't the same. Like I think there's something that's very powerful with having like virtual conversations and versus the written format. And when I was doing the video, or actually when I was doing the interviews that I had to like put in as a transcript, it was like 30 minutes. It was a very Q&A, and it didn't feel natural to me. Like I felt like I was asking questions, but I wasn't actually having a conversation.
Mhm.
And that was hard for me to get away from it. I find myself like trying to stretch it because it's like, yeah, I don't want to just go to the next question. And it didn't feel right to me. Um, I will say when a few months into the Substack, I started experiencing a lot of mental health issues that summer in 2024. I was battling a lot of anxiety. I had started a new job at the time. I was dealing with grant deadlines. I was starting to get this very bad imposter syndrome, um, this very unhealthy people pleasing, which, I used to always say that, I'll do whatever I want, blah, blah, blah. But there's parts of me that really people pleases, whether it's to my boss, to my directors, to my past guests. Um, I always felt like I always felt less than mentally, internally. And I thought that I wasn't good enough, that maybe I'm not going to be able to go anywhere at this point. Maybe this is the best it's ever going to be for me. And I think a lot of things were piling on with family, with um reckoning a lot of traumas that I had never confronted from childhood. My brother Andy had been diagnosed with kidney failure, when I found out that summer, and I think that really sent me into a tailspin. And it led me, and I won't go into details. This is something I actually shared on my podcast when I that I shared with Jung Messenger on the bonus episode, and I talked about how it nearly unalived me. It nearly um, put me in such a dangerous position that I had to be hospitalized for a week, and it was not a fun experience, as one could imagine. It was a very jolting experience. And I had to be sequestered, from the world, literally. Did not have my phone for a whole week. which was unusual. Um, didn't have clocks in the bedroom. I felt like I had a small space that I can only hang around at. And I did not and I did not have the authority to roam me free around the place or to do laundry or to like shave my beard. I had to have someone watch me or I had to ask for permission. And so this was something that I had to like, I don't want to say get used to it, but I had to know that this was the experience I had to deal with. Um and the idea of losing my autonomy was pretty jolting. But I think one thing I will say is that I learned to learn how to step back. I learned how to actually have to confront my own uh my own demons or intrusive thoughts, whatever you would call it. I had a lot to work with. And when I left, I entered into the intensive outpatient program, which was online. I did for like 3 hours and then I had to work from home. So literally, I was online literally the entire day from morning to like night. And it was making me crazy. I was doing it for like a few months, but I knew how important that was because I learned some skills. I had to like learn how to train my brain in a different way of how I interrogate or challenge the intrusive thoughts of otherness, of feeling less than, and countering with things that like, well, no, that's not necessarily true. I've done this and this and that. So those are things that I have to keep telling myself
Mm,
because that what we think about is not necessarily um, a true outcome or what would lead to this outcome. So I think that is to say that it is always good to challenge those negative thoughts and also be in be in touch with folks that are empathetic, um, that you feel closely aligned with. I think that I have learned how to become better in sharing my needs, but also understanding my boundaries, learning how to step away when certain moments really makes me uncomfortable.
mm,
Um, and I think after that, it allowed me to, go through my trip to Vietnam, Cambodia, which I honestly has been and still is one of the best experiences of my life. I mean, I think that really was a pivotal moment. I mean, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. I think we could talk more about that somewhere along the line today. But like, I will say that that had really allowed me to learn things on my own, to discover things that I had not experienced yet. I did not feel like beholden to family. I felt like I needed to learn and do things on my own and be able to make peace with whatever I had felt about my identity as both and
mm.
how I come into the ancestral homeland with this experience. So I think that was a very powerful experience. I mean, there's a whole lot that I could really say on that. And then my brother passes away early January, like 2 weeks after I got back home. And yeah, one of the last conversations I had was about my trip and then kind of like warning me about having to make switches in my professional life. And I think that was something I took to heart. And he passed away a few days later after the fact. And it has been a roller coaster. I felt like when I had lost my creativity to create things, I mean, I had not really done much on my Substack like during that past summer to my brother's death. I mean, I probably was only talking about my mental health and I only did like once or twice. And then when I came back from Vietnam, Cambodia, I was ready to like, give this big expose, this big narrative, this big recap and I really wanted to do that. And so when my brother passed away, obviously that got put aside. I had to put aside everything that was going to do with the Substack. And um Andy's death absolutely, this was my first. family my direct family lost. And I know this is something that you had gone through with your mother a couple of years ago. And yeah, it was very, very jarring. I mean, I think the first couple of weeks I was kind of okay, but it was after the funeral that I just felt like his presence was obvious to me everywhere I went, to the grocery store, to places that I used to work at, to certain roads that we used to take, and I would get a memory. So I think it would always happen to me, and I was at the busiest time of work, and I just felt like I couldn't do it. I just felt so overwhelmed at times, like I couldn't go through with my work. I was making more mistakes. I was just not in the right headspace, and so. That was a very tough experience. And then um I decided to step away from my job at the end of May. And I knew that I needed to pause. I knew I needed to recalibrate after what I had gone through the previous 12 months. And I realized that this was something that I did not want to have to repeat again. So I felt like, okay, you know what? Let me try to recalibrate this. Let me finally grieve. Let me try to get some of my creative energy that I felt like I had lost for the past year. And I got to tell you, this was a really good summer, in a way. I started taking Vietnamese lessons online. I have been touching grass, as the kids would say. I'm pretty sure Preston says that all the time. I say that to the point of obnoxiousness now. Um, and I have been, I do some travels. I went to Oregon to scare my bird's ashes off the coast, and that was a really beautiful time. And going to concerts, talking with friends, and now getting back to my podcast, which I never thought I would ever come back to 2 years ago. When I ended it, I was like, there's no way I'm coming back. And if I do, it's probably could be like years and years from now on. But I felt motivated and I felt like my creativity was coming alive with that rest. And not to say that everything is perfect, everything is like I'm still always grieving. I'm going to be dealing with my first Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then his 1 year death following after that. So, yeah, it's still going to be a very challenging time, still. But I think that it has been a much needed escape and a recalibration.
Yeah, well, they say never, and so here
Hmm.
you are back online. And the thing is, when you were doing Banh Mi Chronicles, I was religiously listening to your podcast every Sunday. There's Randy's voice as I'm cooking my, eggs or whatever, and it was just a beautiful thing. So welcome back. I am a devoted listener, and I'm thankful that you are back.
Hmm.
But let's take a step back and talk about the Banh Mi Chronicles. Like,
Hmm.
what does that name mean to you? Why did you pick Banh Mi?
Yeah, I remembered, I think this was 2016. I went with my mom to New Lan Banh Mi shop in Chicago. And it's a place that, my mom loves to go to. Love getting my banh mi sandwiches from there. Lovely place. And I think it was as I was sitting down, I was like thinking, my gosh, I could write maybe my future book should be called The Banh Mi Chronicles. I don't know what it is. It just popped up into my head. And um and I had to think about why has this name stuck with me uh for the past couple of years prior to me releasing my podcast in 2019. And I always felt like, banh mi means bread. So I love the idea of breaking bread. I think that was something that stood out for me. It's about breaking bread. It's about connection with folks. I also thought about how banh mi was the first Vietnamese food that I felt okay eating because believe it or not, I really wasn't eating pho until I gotta say sometime in college.
Mm.
Yeah, believe it or not, I used to not like the smell of pho. I used to complain about it all the time. I used to feel embarrassed about what I would bring to school. So I felt that the banh mi sandwich was very palatable and it was very infused with with the French bread because France colonized Vietnam for quite a while. And I thought about this this navigation between Western and Vietnamese identity. And so, as someone who was born in the United States and have Vietnamese and Khmer lineage in me, I felt like it was this combination, but it also kind of taught me about assimilation. It taught me about like what does it mean to be of these identities. So I think that that was what really jump started it. And I felt like when I was ready to do a podcast, I'm like, why not just put that name instead onto the podcast rather than a book? Because I don't have the discipline yet to even write a book. So as much as I have tried, so.
Well, I think it's brilliant. Banh Mi Chronicles is brilliant and perfect. And it ran for 4 years. And
Mhm,
you actually had a lot of very prominent but also grassroots guests on your
mhm,
podcast. You've won awards. Tell me,
mhm.
what was the most surprising thing about being a podcast host? Where did this show take
Mm.
you?
I think during the beginning of the pandemic, I was wondering what I'll just say this. Couple of months into my podcast, I was interviewing mostly local people in Chicago, Asian Chicago folks that I've known for a number of years. And I honestly did not think that I was going to veer too much out of it, really. And when the pandemic hit, I was still learning the ropes of podcasting, and I was very new to still to the process of sharing my work and building on it. And I started to I think at that time it was the 45-year mark of the end of the Vietnam, Lao Civil War, the beginning of the Khmer Rouge, the 1975. So I had that theme. And so I interviewed some of my friends on a national level that are of those descents. And the pandemic hit in the middle of it during spring. And I started grad school and I was like, okay, I don't know if people are really going to be listening to podcasts. I don't know if it's going to fit in this climate because like, are people really going to listen to Asian American, Southeast Asian American history while we have a pandemic that is unknown, that's killing thousands and thousands of people? And I was very uncertain. Um, I think there was one moment that really stood out for me, and that was when I decided to reach out to Viet Thanh Nguyen. And funny enough, like earlier that year, I was featured in their Diacritics publication that he founded. And I messaged him about my podcast. I said, well, thank you for your platform and for shedding light into my work. And he actually told me that he really liked that podcast name. And I think that kind of stayed with me. He's like, you know what, maybe I'm gonna have to try to see if he's receptive to, being on my show. And back in May, I reached out to him and he actually said yes. And I was pretty floored by it. I did not know what to expect. I was quite nervous. I was like, this man is very intelligent. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He is, um, I don't have any connections to him, so to speak. So I knew that I had to be on my best game as as I was preparing for this interview. And I gotta tell you, like, even though I held my own in that interview, that hour not only flew by, but it felt intimidating. It felt like was trying so hard to catch up to his elevated way of speaking and his thinking process. He's a very fast thinker, and he, has a lot of ideas, thoughts, and I felt like after I recorded, I called my friend Tony. I was like, yeah, I really need a nap. I really, really need a nap. But I think that was kind of when things started to really change for me. I think as a podcaster, I realized that, maybe I have an opportunity to really go beyond it. And little did I realize that all of a sudden I gained a different audience. I started having other Asian American folks, Asian diaspora folks reach out to me or follow me, and that summer became very formative in my podcasting journey, and it led me to more folks in the community. It led me to more authors. It led me to more um, different folks that I never knew about prior to 2020. So all of a sudden, my world just opened up, and it opened up in a big way. And it came at a time, but the George Floyd, then the anti-Asian hate. Um, it was coming at the most critical time, and it taught me how uh to be responsive and to engage in conversations in real time, and also find ways to not only to not be reactive, but how do we respond in a way that creates healthy long-term impact. And I think that's something I always think about. So yeah, that was a very formative time. I think that was like where I felt like I was growing more as a podcaster. It taught me how to deepen my curiosity. It taught me how to like do the further work to really have important discussions where I don't feel like I have to like play catch up, or feel intimidated by some of my guests, which I have felt in the past.
Yeah. Well, you've had some pretty intense, amazing guests, though, and um, I'm just so proud of you because you've come so far. You not only shared your personal journey, for those who want to learn more, there's plenty of data out there on the web,
Mhm.
but you've powered through, and your Goliath was Viet Thanh Nguyen, author
Mhm.
of The Sympathizer and Committed and some of the other well-known books that he's written. And that truly has been, I think, one of the big stepping stones for you because you've
Mhm.
talked with activists, you've talked with authors. Um, I will have to say though, my favorite, and you've done so many, but my favorite episode probably was the one with Milk. Um,
I was just gonna say, yeah.
you know me so well.
I
Um,
remembered, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and everybody go listen to that episode
Mhm.
with Milk. Just beautiful. But
Mhm. She's open to doing another episode. I actually reached out to her. I was like,
really, oh yes,
but so stay tuned. I mean, she said that she's very busy right now, but I had told her like, I'm back on the podcast, but I have said that I actually told her that a lot of people that I've talked to have always said that this was one of their favorite episodes is with her.
Mm,
And also, I would share that clip of her singing to students that I would present at local universities. So, yeah, I think that episode was incredibly, it was very moving. It was what I needed. This was summer of 2020. And yeah, it came at a very, very good time. And I really have felt I still feel goosebumps even thinking about that. That was a hell of an episode.
yeah. But your episodes are also very educational, and they're also very let's just say they're very triggering in the sense of
Hmm.
whichever political side you're on, whatever your feelings are on something, you're gonna be charged.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's definitely not for the faint of heart. But
Oh.
the
Mm-mm.
beautiful thing is, it is the Banh Mi Chronicles. It is opposing views, or sometimes the same views, but different lens,
Hmm.
sitting in front of that virtual table and having an open discussion as adults, where we can learn and grow together, which again,
Hmm.
just a beautiful thing. But
Hmm.
how do you pick your stories and the voices that you want to uplift on your platform?
It's a really good question. Back then I was like doing seasons. I always wanted to do like themes, and I felt like, okay, let me find some cohesion. It's hard to explain because I don't know if it's easy to teach that, but I think it's understanding the kind of guests that you have, that you bring on, what or how does it relate to the mission, or how does it connect to the mission that you have as a podcaster for your show? And I think that is something that I always have to go back to. What is my mission? Does this align? Does this person align with my mission? Does their values, their work align with it? And I think that's something I always think about a good fit. Is this someone that I feel like I can engage in conversations with, and that can really go beyond the surface level? Because I'm really not a surface level person. I do like to dig deep, and and there. I'm not gonna name names. There were certain episodes where I felt like it was pulling teeth, and I'm like, okay, this person doesn't quite have what I'm really looking for, and I had to find out like 20 minutes into the interview. I'm like, right, I'm gonna have to pivot. I'm gonna have to be a little creative. And yeah, I think, I think to me, it's about doing the research. What is really fueling my curiosity? What keeps me up at night? Why does this person's work matter?
Hmm.
In the larger lens, in this larger lens, and also why does it matter to me? Why do I want to share this with my listeners? Like I love to share things that I feel very passionate about. So when I'm bringing on guests, it's because I really believe in their work. I feel like it needs to be amplified. I feel like they're sharing a blueprint to people that could, start their own platform, whether it's a podcast or TikTok or write a book, um, start a community space in real life, or just have a conversation with their parents. And I think that those are things that I hope that I could plant a seed on. And so those are things that I look forward to. Like I don't like to have just prolific celebrity people. Like I don't want to bring in people who are very surface level or very basic in that sense in terms of their real life experience and something that I've already heard a million times, from their other appearances on the other shows. I I feel like there's community members and other grassroots folks, leaders that do work that we are not seeing, that we're not documenting, and they're important, and they're also the kinds of things that actually moves the needle for a lot of people that don't believe that they have a story. And God knows, like ever since I was doing storytelling, other Asian folks would always tell me, I don't think I have a story to tell. And I always challenge them, well, why do you feel that way? You don't
Hmm.
have to be um, a savvy public speaker or a known writer. I think your story really does matter. And I think that's something that I try to emphasize that if you have a story that you are willing to share and that you're very proud and passionate about, don't limit yourself. Don't let some big wig person that's not connected to your story tell you that. This is your platform. This is an opportunity. So that's what I think about too. And I try to remind people like I'm not going to be like, oh, you don't have like this many followers. You don't belong in me. Like I want to bring on people who actually do the work. They're not just talking the talk. Like I, want people that can actually show us what you're doing.
That's beautiful, beautifully said, and I can't agree more. I think we all have a story. Every story matters. I also believe that we all have a platform.
Mhm,
It could be that unsung hero who is, just goes to school, goes to church, whatever, every single
mhm,
day, but he's got that platform because there's a community, no matter how big or small, around him. And same thing with those, entrepreneurs who are influencers, who are
mhm,
billionaires or whatever, they have their platform too, and hopefully they're using it for good.
mhm,
But I agree with you that we can make impact at whatever level, right?
mhm.
It's ripples
Absolutely.
that matter. So thank you again for sharing. So I want to talk a little bit about your identity and your personal journey, because
Mhm,
you're you're Cambodian, you're Vietnamese American, you went on a solo trip, an epic
mhm,
solo trip to your home country in terms of your roots.
mhm.
Tell me about that experience and why did you decide to learn the Vietnamese?
Mm. Yeah, good question. So, as a 42-year-old, I felt like I had watched a lot of my friends, Vietnamese and Cambodian friends, go to the motherland in recent years, so like prior to COVID and coming out of COVID lockdown. Um, I went to Vietnam for the first time in 2009 as a 25-year-old. This was really the second country I had ever visited. And I was living in Korea at the time. I was like a couple months in. So I was very new to this whole living abroad process and very new to the traveling international scene. And I went with my uncle, and long story short, like my uncle is someone that I absolutely love. And, when his wife, my aunt, had passed away 2 years before that, it really hit me very hard. And I was pretty mad at him at the time, like a few months after her death, because he decided to remarry. And I felt like I'm still grieving. A lot of us are still grieving. And it felt like a betrayal. And so, I started to forgive him that year, and he asked me if I want to go to Vietnam and meet, his wife that he was marrying. Um and I agreed to go because I feel like this is a now or never. I'm Instead of being 14, 15, I don't know how many hours from Chicago to Vietnam, I'm only like 4 or 5 hours away. And I'm
Mm.
like, I have no excuse now. Like, this is a now or never kind of a moment. Um, so I went with him, and just hitting Saigon was a culture shock to me immediately. Like I felt overwhelmed. I mean, I arrived at night, like I felt like there was just so many things going on all at once, and I was like, I couldn't process what was going through my mind. Mind you, I couldn't speak Vietnamese at all, so I was already kind of feeling very mute and confused. Um, I was very, I was uh, very much trying to figure out, like, what is the next hour going to look like? What am I going to be doing? Like, my uncle is not the most verbose person. Like, he'll do things on a whim and not tell me what's really going on. So that drove me nuts. And so I did not know what was going on. And it it led to a lot of anxiety. Like, mind you, 2009 in context. Um, I did not have Facebook or social media on my phone. I only had like a non-smartphone. Facebook was only like available on desktop, so I had to rely on that. And I remember, like, from the taxi cab drivers to the servers at restaurants, they would always say, you need to learn how to speak Vietnamese. And I would get that quite a bit, and like in Saigon, and I did not feel welcomed at that time. I felt pretty, it was, I don't want to say it was a low point, but it was a reminder that I'm not one of them. That was how I was feeling back then. And when I went to my family village, which was like a 7, 8 hour rugged bus ride, through the Mekong, like past the Mekong River to the Anyang province. I got to meet my family for the first time, and it was very cathartic. It was
Mm.
really beautiful, you know, still overwhelming, um, and just trying to process it all in. And like by the time it was over, I was like, I don't know what just hit me. But I had never forgot how I was treated in Saigon during that time, to the point where I didn't really want to go back to Vietnam anytime soon. And it would take me until last year, so 15 years for me to get back. And I chose to go to Vietnam in a different manner. I wanted to visit Hanoi, the northern province, and central Vietnam, Hoi An, Hue, and Da Nang. I wanted to visit those spots. And I chose not to do Saigon only because I did not have enough time. Um, and I wanted to visit Cambodia. This was my first foray into Cambodia and never been. And long story short, I definitely had a lot of reservations for many reasons. One, I can't speak Khmer, and I don't have any family members there, and a lot of them were killed during the genocide. So that also was weighing very heavily on me. And this is the place that my dad escaped from and nearly lost his life. And so how do I how do I untangle a lot of that heaviness? And so I felt like it was my time to just finally go and just do it. And I gotta say, being in both places, having awesome tour guides. Having private tour guides was amazing. Just really having conversations, deep conversations about their experience and sharing my own stories and just being able to experience the generosity from folks, being given grace, from folks, knowing that I can't speak Vietnamese, and I really appreciated that a lot. Um, you know, just being able to do things on my own, learning how to ride a bike through the streets, going through traffic, and just really connecting, feeling very connected. And yeah, it's very inexplicable to explain all of it, but I mean, I've met some wonderful people that I connected with, and it's still a very powerful experience. And like I had shared my post about Cambodia on my Substack. I still haven't been able to finish the one on Vietnam. I feel like that's going to take a while too. So, I mean, there's a lot to go through, but I mean, it's such a magnetic experience. And why I chose to learn Vietnamese, I think what really prompted me to learn was after I left, I was like, you know what? Maybe this is the time now. And for a long time, I felt very guilty of not learning it. Like my grandma lived to be until I was 35 years old. And she had already had dementia for like several years prior to that. But I was still a grown adult and I still couldn't speak to her. And I had all this time and it really bothered me. And I always felt the shame. I always felt like I'm never gonna, even if I did learn Vietnamese, I'm never gonna get the pronunciation. I'm never gonna get it right. I'm gonna be told that it sucks, blah, blah, blah. And so I gave up. And then when I think coming back, I felt like, no, this is a different relationship that I'm having now, and I want to learn more. And even if I'm not fluent, it's okay. I just feel like this is an opportunity for me to like deepen my connections to other Vietnamese people from the homeland to, the US and other places of the diaspora. And Khmer to me, like I want to learn Khmer as well, but it's also like written in Sanskrit. It's very difficult. Like they always say that your brain has a hard time learning a new language at this age. I'm already in my 40s. Vietnamese is a language I feel like is more attainable, so to speak. And I'm like, yeah, I cannot put in another language at the same time. I don't have enough brain power for it. And yeah, but I think so far the Vietnamese learning process has been fairly enjoyable. I've been texting a lot in Vietnamese. Pronunciation is a little out of whack, but maybe Khmer will come in later. I mean, I always want to remind people I'm not abandoning my Cambodian side, so I'm just saying that. I always feel like maybe that's a thing that I invent in my own head, but
Yeah.
it's yeah. I think that
Wow.
that's about the power of trying to reclaim yourself. And there's people in our age group that are finally learning and they're doing it for their enjoyment, not for the expectation of being fluent, not for the expectation of trying to appease their parents or whatever, or, you know, or, but just kind of reclaiming ourselves of what we had lost. And I think that there's some power to that.
Yeah, absolutely. My husband is 41 and
Mm.
always talks about how he wants to learn Vietnamese, and like if Randy can do it or at least attempt to do it, you can too. And
What about Preston? I mean,
oh
he's
my
he's a
God,
young one.
you would think, right now he's just,
Yeah.
talks about food and stuff like that. But yes, I mean, the nice thing is they both have, they love to travel.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think it's very doable for us to be able to go and spend, 2 weeks, a month, whatever,
Yeah.
and start to pick up some of those nuances of the
Oh
language,
yeah. Mhm.
right? And eventually it comes back to you in one form or another.
Do you follow Chris Chan, by the way? Chris Chan Travels. I mean, I really like his content.
Really? I may have. I don't
Mhm.
know. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll
I
double
don't
check.
know him personally yet, but I know some people that I know or that we know do. So I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I have been wanting to reach out to him, but I do like his content a lot. I mean, he lives in Vietnam now too,
Okay.
and he shares a lot of context. And I was like, wow, this is some very informative things.
Yeah. So just real quickly, like you're traveling internationally, but you also do
Hmm.
a lot of domestic travel, and
Hmm.
usually it's because you're chasing after a singer, at a concert?
Sometimes. I'm starting.
Sometimes.
That was a starting to. I
It
mean,
feels like all the time, but tell me,
I know.
what was like you do a lot of impulsive travel to
Yes, I
go to
do.
concerts on, yeah, see?
Yeah, the thing
So
is, like,
you've done
yeah,
like Janet Jackson and Lady Gaga and like who
yeah,
else?
yeah.
Where's
Yeah,
Randy go
there's too
next?
many. There's too many. And like I told my friend the other day that I have very expensive tastes and I do need less expensive hobbies. So that is a work in progress. Um, yeah, I have a lot to say about celebrity culture. That's not something I'm gonna get into, but I would just say that, yeah, I think there is I think for the past 20 years, concert going has been like this energizing force in my life. I think it's very inspiring to be like as much as I hate being in crowds, I do like to be in an audience where people are like expressing the same love for an artist's work and being able to feel connected and just feel alive and see creativity on the stage, feeling inspired. Like, I mean, when I look at my first concert was Madonna, and I think people really underestimate how great of a live performer she is. She's a terrific dancer. She's got a very thematic way of doing things. This is way before people were raving about Taylor Swift. I don't want those Swifties coming after me. I have my feelings about it. Um, but but like but to see the creativity that's always inspired me in my own life. And so I think it always gives me a boost of energy, whether I go by myself or whether I take a friend with. It's very enjoyable. Or I end up making friends with the person next to me. That has happened before. And
Yeah.
so I think that there's something that's very um unique and precious about that time. And I think that the last few years I started to kind of go into like maybe different cities. It's starting to creep up more, especially if I feel like I need to do it somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, I've seen Bjork in San Francisco. That was a phenomenal experience. I saw Japanese Breakfast. The lead singer is Michelle Zauner, who wrote Playing in HMR. I saw her
Yeah.
in Minneapolis. Um, I saw Mitski in Nashville, and even though Mitski is like a millennial Asian American, her fans are high schoolers, and that was a little tough to sit through. I was like, wow, this is very weird. This is very, very weird. I feel like I'm old enough to be their parents, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so weird. Here I am in Nashville, and this is all happening. I'm like, wow. So yeah, I think that is to say that, yeah, I think that there's a lot of joy in experiencing it. I mean, the last concert I went to was like Lady Gaga in Chicago, and I absolutely loved it. I think that is like my favorite, not my now new favorite concert. I mean, I love the new album a lot, and I love the choreography, the wardrobe, the theme around it. Um, she plays the piano, she interacts with the audience. And she plays the guitar. So I think that she's got such a very strong presence on stage that is really hard to behold, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I've been to Gaga's concert twice.
Oh, did
And
you? Which one did you go
my
to?
how old was I? It was with Joe. And to
Uh-huh.
be honest, it was with my Microsoft team and
Okay.
my T-Mobile team. But I will say that Bruno Mars is on my bucket list.
I have
And
seen him years ago. Yeah, I've seen him
did,
years ago.
did.
I enjoyed him. He's very entertaining. This was like 2017 when he released the 24 Karat Gold, I think that album. And I really did enjoy that. I went with a good friend of mine. And yeah, I think he's a very consummate performer, very professional what he does. And yeah, I don't think that you would, ever feel bored at a show. Although I wonder why he hasn't made a proper album since, which behooves me. I know he has like the Silk Sonic group, which is fine as a side project, but other than that, but also Lady Gaga doing that Bruno Mars song, that Die Without a Smile. God, that was so good. She did the whole song, like doing the Bruno part, and I was like, ah, that just melted my heart. I love that song a lot. I don't care what any of y'all think if it's overplayed. I love that song. So
You got to just own it.
Yes.
All right, my dear. So let's talk about your legacy and your future in the few minutes that we have.
Hmm.
What is
Hmm.
next for you? What do you want to leave behind as your legacy?
I think I just want to leave behind the conversations that I have been documenting with people that I feel very strongly in, people whose work I feel that I really do believe in, and their stories. And so I feel like what I want to leave behind is the connections of people that I bring together
Mhm.
and through this. Being able to know that I am not going to be silent on things that do matter. I think that is very important, especially in times like these, where it's very important to know that you are on the right side of history, believing that you're on the right side of history, and this is what I have done to say this, and let that be a blueprint for other folks as reminders that there are people fighting against
Yeah.
this, and also protecting your future. Um, and I will say that what I'm going to be working on is my podcast. I've been kind of going at this pretty good right now. I feel like I'm in a really good headspace to do it. Like I have planned episodes and unplanned episodes. So yeah, I know that you've been a devoted listener, back in the back in those days. But I know I've been popping like every 2 or 3 days now. So I'm like, there will come a time where that's going to settle down a little bit. So I right now I'm just kind of like in my creative and motivated energy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of relevancy to what you're doing right now because it's in the now. And
Mhm.
I think the last one I listened to was about preparing for protests, safety preparation.
That was a tough one. Oh yeah, that was
Um,
a tough one.
it was really good, like things you don't
Yeah.
really think about,
Hmm.
and why you should be thinking about um,
Hmm.
doing what you need to do to prepare for going into
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So I encourage people to definitely check out Bud Me Chronicles and
Yeah.
um, listen to all your episodes, really.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for always being supportive of my work too. You've always been a cheerleader, and I've always been so glad to have you on my show because I feel like you have such important stories and important work that you're doing. So I really appreciate you being a contributor to that show.
Thank, thank you, Randy, for having me. All right, where can people find you, or where do you want them to go to follow you?
So yeah, you can find me on the Banh Mi Bites on Substack. You can subscribe for free. And if you feel like you want to donate, please do. I'm not going to say no to it. I mean, I'm doing this out of like the good of my soul here and for the people that I love. You can follow me on Instagram at Banh Mi BANHMI underscore Chronicles on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok, Banh Mi Chronicles. Yeah, I think I'm all over social media, and it's not for the faint of heart. I say things that are hot takes, even like when I got a lot of flack for saying that I think pandan is better than ube, and ube is overrated. I know a lot of Filipino folks have come after me for saying that, my friends.
You're
I
so
don't.
controversial.
That alone tells you the kind of spicy takes that I bring to the table. So buyer beware, but also I'm entertaining too. So like I don't follow algorithms. There's not one thing that I'm interested in that I'm gonna feed you. Like there's gonna be a lot. There's gonna be concerts. There's gonna be me touching grass. There's gonna be me going to restaurants. There's gonna be
And
me
dancing.
getting dancing and me giving a damn about what's going on in the world. So yeah, there's it's a whole package. So yeah, algorithms be damned.
I love it. I love it. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or promote while we're
Um, Yeah, just stay tuned. Stay tuned for more episodes. I got some more episodes coming up and hopefully get some more writing in because I really been wanting to write about my Vietnam trip. And
mm,
a lot of things are kind of like in the way at the moment. You know, the world is being very funny right now. So it's like, I want that world to just calm down a little so I can actually get some things, fun things that I really want.
yeah.
So,
Thank you for sharing, Randy.
absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, listeners, that was Randy Kim, podcaster, writer, and storyteller. His work continues to highlight the complexities and beauty of BIPOC life. His openness about identity, trauma, and healing is a reminder that our stories, no matter how painful, can carry power and possibility. So if you'd like to learn more about Randy's work, check out Banh Mi Chronicles and Banh Mi Bites, wherever you get your podcasts, and definitely subscribe to his newsletter on Substack. Thanks for tuning in to Quixotic Heights. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who would be inspired by it. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep telling your stories because they do matter. Thank you so much, Randy.
Thank you.